Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Hypnotica with Chantelle and Melissa. Today, we are talking about loving your sexuality. And this reminded me of an exercise I did once in my hypnotherapy class. We were divided into two groups and each given a word. And one word was education and the other word was sex. And we had to write down 10 words on a paper, just personally, what we thought that word meant. And my group was the sex group, and I wrote down my 10 words, and then we compared our list. And wouldn't you know that our lists were very different? There was almost not even the same words for everyone. We all had different words. We all had different thoughts about what sex was, what it meant to us. So, Melissa, what does it mean to you?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. So the first thing that comes to mind is connection and conversation. It's a way to have a conversation without necessarily having to use words. It's using your body, your desire. There's also like the word playfulness is coming up, intensity, like this desire for intensity. Yeah. Like having things be super fun and being okay with things being awkward. Like sex can be really awkward sometimes, and can we just laugh about it? Like it's also like a very emotional experience too. I feel like a lot of times this happens too with writing erotica. I could go to I'm not saying this is necessarily like wrong or bad, but the focus can be strictly on body parts going into body parts or strictly penetrative sex. And there's so much more to sex and our sexuality as individuals than just putting our bodies inside other people's bodies.
Right? Exactly. I love what you said about like the connection and like it feels just like a continued conversation when you're like first so like intimate like mentally and then you get intimate emotionally, then you just want to get intimate physically.
Mhm.
And like my favorite sexy times are like I don't even think penetration was involved at all, but it was just such a long time of just connectivity just across the board and in all
Mhm.
the ways. And yeah, it's just magical. I remember my list had a lot of like tantra and like just very romantic type things on it. And I'm here for all the romantic things. And um, it brings me back also to a book that I read about like how different people like to be touched differently, and how when we are in a conversation with someone, we can ask like, like slower or
Mhm.
lighter, please, or, any of that. And it doesn't have to be a criticism of the other person. And like, they love it. Like, I used to back away from asking for what I wanted until I realized that they really love it when you're there and you're just like asking for what you want because they really want to please you.
Absolutely. Yes, I feel the same way. I used to be really nervous and I would get really squirrely when people would ask me like, what do you like, or how does your body receive pleasure, like, because yeah, people, they just want it, everyone's different, so we just need to know, like, we want our partners to feel good, we want to feel good, these are valid questions. But I used to get so irritated and I'm just like, just do whatever you want, I'll tell you, it's just, I wanted to like brush it away, because if I told you what I liked, then that meant I was going to receive pleasure, which would then push the shame button. And I didn't want to feel shame. So now we're not going to talk about pleasure. So I just need you to do whatever you want. And then if I don't like it, I'll tell you, instead of being very specific and be like, this is how it is, or this is what I like. So moving through that, it's much easier now for me to say, A, what I like and don't like, hard no's, the maybes and the yeses. And then if something's happening and I need it to be different, I'll try to lead with a compliment of like, I love the pace that you're going. Can you lighten up on the pressure, please? Saying something like that. So yeah, I don't want it to sound like a criticism, but
Another
yeah.
thing I really found helpful was the red light, yellow light, green light thing, where all
Hmm.
I would have to say is the color. So, like, obviously, green means this is the best, and
Yeah.
yellow means let's pause and adjust. Like, I don't want it to stop, please. And red being like full stop.
Hmm.
Um,
Yes.
I also like talking about it ahead of time and afterwards. Like, I love debriefing. I just love talking about sex in
Yes.
general. But like, just saying that just because I don't want something on one day doesn't mean I don't want it on another day.
Hmm.
Like,
Yep.
it's just my body wants different things on different days, and like, let's keep it spicy. Like, why does it always have to be the same thing? Because that
Hmm.
was one of my reasons why I wouldn't say, if I wasn't liking something and I just like was like grin and bear it,
Hmm.
because I was afraid that next time they wouldn't do it and I would want it next time. So it's like I just had to be clear about that, and then it was all good.
Definitely. I've had to do the same exact thing or like talking about it beforehand. I'm like, hey, I'm not in the mood for these things. That can happen later, but today I would like to receive these things. Just be clear and specific. And and again, this is just me personally, but wanting to make it playful and fun.
Yeah, I love the whole teasing aspect. I love like the forbidden aspect, like, like there's just no penetration is happening today, but we are going to do all the play. Like, I
Yes.
just love that. That's one of
Hmm.
my favorite things. And then like if it happens, it happens, and and I also like it when it's like like it happens when I'm ready for it, not like that they're
Yes.
just like, okay, it's happening now, and I'm like, oh, but I'm not ready, like
Hmm. Yep,
yeah. I like to
definitely.
give my body all the time to open up and, yeah, feel relaxed and everything. And it's just so
Hmm.
much better then.
It is. Yes, physically and emotionally.
Oh,
Yes.
for sure, for sure. So tell me about sometimes that you've had like conversations about sex when you're not really like having sex. Like, how has that gone for you? Has it been like a comfortable conversation, or like, do you like talk about right after sex, or just like as you're driving, or what? What comes to mind?
Oh man, lately it's it's been very like upfront, very clear. I prefer face to face instead of texting these like I can do it via text depending on the partner, but sometimes I need to see body language. So, yes, currently it's just as it comes up whenever it comes up, I just tell my partner like what's happening, what's going on, what I like. I don't really have to say what I don't like so much. Like he doesn't really do the things I don't like. So
Well, that's
there,
always helpful.
yes.
You don't
Like
have
he
to train them.
exactly. Like he knows what my hard no's are, and that's like he respects the boundaries. So it's like this is amazing. In the past, like I've had partners where yeah, it's so funny you mentioned driving because yes, there is a partner where we would have the best conversations while driving or going for a walk or something, and the topic of sex will come up. I'll say, I'm thinking about this, or I really like to experience this. How do you feel about it? Is there anything that you want? Is there anything that has been on your mind that you would either want to receive more of, less of? Prior to, I want to say, like the past 10 years have been really solid in terms of communication because I understood the shame button getting pushed. Prior to those 10 years, there really weren't conversations happening other than when something was happening that felt uncomfortable, asking them to stop, slow down, ease up on the pressure. Sometimes people would not do what I asked, and I would dissociate. So like those are like the early things. And noticing when that happened and how I felt afterwards and feeling really empty afterwards. And then seeing the pattern of that, of like, I'm trying to communicate, my boundaries aren't being respected, I'm getting frustrated, now I'm just going to dissociate because no one's going to listen to me anyway. And that's not satisfying in how we want to do the things. There was a period of time where I just took a break altogether from sex, from dating, from like everything, to get right with myself and notice when the dissociation was happening, noticing that I was communicating a little too late. I was letting the pain happen more than I should have. And then finally start to be like, okay, here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to let it get that far. We're going to communicate beforehand. What the hard no's are, the things that don't feel good to me, and try to say those things up front. And it was a little messy because the shame button's still getting pushed while I'm trying to communicate outside the bedroom and not wait to the last minute. Luckily, generally speaking, in the last decade, I've been with partners who have been very kind, very open, very understanding, and receptive to feedback. And then I try my absolute best to give the same. Like to also be very open and being very receptive to what they want and they need as well.
That's beautiful. I was thinking back to when you were talking about being in the car or going for walks. Like those are times when we're more present, I feel. Like we're not dissociated or like on our phones or that kind of a
Mm-hmm.
thing, because like obviously we have to drive and you want to keep the driver awake. And I don't know, there's just, you can get more in a flow when you're walking or when you're driving, I feel. And like it's like you're in your own little container. And
Mm-hmm.
I love the word container too. And I also like that brought up boundaries for me, because like it almost feels safer when you know where your limits are, or like if you tell him like where your limits are or what you would like to do. Like even if you're not telling him what you don't want, if you're just telling him what you want, it gives him a boundary or a container or something to work with,
Mm-hmm.
like a shell of some sort. Like you're putting forth your intention and it has some structure around it, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not like specific, if that
Yes.
makes sense. And
Yes.
like that, it correlates to life too. Like when you're setting an intention and you have somewhat of a structure around it, but it's not so limiting that you can't do anything else beside it. Like it allows for magic. So like
Yes.
it's just like a magic recipe. When you have a bit of structure, you have your container, you have your intention, and you have presence. And with
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, all sorts of new sensations. And yeah, it could just be something that you've never experienced before in
Mm-hmm.
sex or in life.
Definitely. Yes. I love that you brought up magic because I'm like, oh, yes, there's so much space for that when the container is set up well. And it can be surprising in the best way because there's safety inside the container. So when we feel safe, then we're open to more, just to more happening.
Yeah, and especially when we're present too. Like
Mm-hmm.
when we get ahead of ourselves or we're back in the past, like that doesn't make for good sexy times. But
Mm-hmm.
when we're like just right there in the moment, what we're feeling, what we want, right in that moment, and
Mm-hmm.
like allowing ourselves to receive is a huge thing too, in bed and in life. Allowing
Yes.
ourselves to receive is huge. It's like, what is the quote that I read this morning? Practice pleasure like your life depends on it.
Oh, I
That
love
was like the
that.
best quote. Yeah. And like, what is sex but practicing pleasure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Giving and receiving. And that's what life's all about.
Mm-hmm. Yes. What has your journey been when it comes to like to loving your sexuality?
Well, I'm trying to go back to like my teenage years. I didn't really know about sex till I was like in my mid-teens. And then, like I got a boyfriend and I got married when I was 18. And it was interesting to me that I had good times before I got married. And then when I got married, it wasn't so good anymore. And I couldn't figure it out. Like, I remember, these ladies having there was a lingerie bachelorette party for me, and, they were giving me, like, some sex advice and to use lube and stuff, and I was just in my head, I was like, "I don't need lube." But I'm like, "I'm not gonna tell these ladies I've been playing around." But anyways, apparently I did need lube. Um, yeah, I guess before I got married, I allowed myself to, like, be more playful and like just it was just all the foreplay, right? And then when I
Hmm.
got married, somehow we didn't get the memo. It was just like, okay, this is slot A goes into slot B, we're making babies, like that's the deal now. And it was just not
Hmm.
fun. And yeah, it took me a bit to kind of wrap my head around that. And it took me a bit to figure out like solo play, like I
Hmm.
didn't have an orgasm till I was in my 30s. Like that was after I had kids.
Hmm.
So my journey has been gradual and now I'm just here for all the pleasure.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, I don't know about the shame so much. I feel like it just wasn't really talked about when I was like it was just a non-existent thing. you
Hmm.
know so
Yeah.
so I guess I just have different triggers or whatever with sex.
Hmm. Yep.
Like I've always been
Absolutely.
like a sexual person, I feel, but like, it's obviously a taboo topic. I remember asking my dad, "What is sex?" when I was like 10, and he's like, "Oh, that means if you're a boy or a girl." And that was it. And that was the end of the discussion. I'm like, okay.
Oh.
And then I found out about what sex was when I read a book by James Dobson when I was a teenager at my friend's house. So there
Hmm.
we go. But that was after I had kissed a boy, so that's really not the safest thing to not tell your kids about sex. So,
Yes,
oopsie.
exactly. Definitely. Yeah, the sex education that I received was just biological. Like, this is how babies are made. No discussion of pleasure or consent or having conversations. Like, there was contraception included in that, and this is how you put a condom on. This is what birth control is. Um, but that's it. And there's just nothing else said. And I feel like growing up with or inside Christianity and with religion, it's this thing you don't talk about. You don't talk about sex, but you are expected, at least in my experience, you're expected to have like all this pleasure and all this bliss and all this amazingness and all the kids and all this stuff after you get married. But what's happening prior to that was all this shame for the pleasure or like even wanting it. And suddenly you're supposed to throw all of that away once you're married, and then all of this amazing stuff's supposed to happen, but really everybody's scared. Like everybody's
Yeah.
afraid to
And
feel
like
anything.
the movies don't help at all either.
No.
Like when you see sex in the movies, there's not a whole lot of foreplay.
Mm-mm.
And, the woman seems to pretend to like it,
Yeah.
And so it was like for a long time too, I was like pretending to like it. There was this show, I'm trying to remember what it's called. It was on TLC and it was about sex, and there was a sex therapist. And she was asking this couple, this lady, she's like, "Why are you making all these sounds like right from the get-go? Like right at the beginning when like you couldn't possibly have been feeling pleasure at that moment. Like it takes a
Mm-hmm.
good 20 minutes before you'd be at that level, like."
Mm-hmm.
And she was just like, "Oh, I thought that was like how you did it." Like I just thought that was how it was done. And so like her homework was to not make the sounds, unless she was actually feeling pleasure. So
Mhm.
I thought that was an interesting thing too. I love watching all of the shows like How to Build a Sex Room and
Yeah.
like all of these fun new things and just how people are talking about it more. I love
Mhm.
Jaya's like the blueprint stuff, the
Mhm.
erotic blueprint, and I feel like that's so important to like talk to your partner and figure out what your blueprints are.
Mhm.
Um, and we have an episode about that. I think that's
Yeah.
one of our most popular episodes. But like some of those, learning about some of those things were just so life changing for me.
Mhm.
Just realizing
Same.
that, hey, we're not all the same. Not everybody's like me. Like we've got to kind of speak different love languages or different sex languages and
Mhm.
figure out compatibility and all of that.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yes. Which requires the conversation and not
Yeah.
sweeping everything away and pretending like it's not there or just
Yeah.
putting up with it.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just so amazing when you are with somebody who can read your body language and can
Yep.
listen to your breath and
Mhm.
like could just be in the moment and intuitive and like know what your body is saying versus
Mhm.
having to articulate it all the time. Because I find when I go into pleasure, my words they just go away. Like,
Yeah,
what are words, right?
definitely.
So it's just so helpful to have someone who's not in like doing mode, but more in being mode. When you're with a guy who's in doing mode, he's just like, okay, this happens first, this happens second, this happens third. And like, we know this already. We're like, I'm bored. Like, no, like, why don't we make a brand new painting? It doesn't always have to be the same painting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yes. The embodiment piece is huge. And being an intuitive person, having sex with someone who is very much in the doing thing feels unsafe to me now. Because I'm like, where are
Mhm.
you? Like, you're doing
Mhm.
the things. It may or may not feel good, but like, you're doing it, but I can't feel you. I can't feel where you are emotionally. I don't know if you're checked out or what, like, I don't know what's happening. It just doesn't. Mm-mm.
Yeah, like being with someone that you haven't had a good conversation with, like a heart-to-heart conversation with first, or even
Mm-hmm.
caught up or anything like that, like it's just been too long and you don't feel like you're connected in like mentally or emotionally, then sex is just like so like not yummy.
Mm-mm. Nope.
It's just there is a disconnect there. Like sex should be the
Yep.
cherry on top of all the other connection.
Exactly.
But
Yes.
it used to be where I thought that was how I got connection. Like if I
Same.
give him sex, then he's going to be open with me emotionally.
Same. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
It's taken years to get that. But I'm like, no, no, that's not. Mm-mm.
hmm And also, I've been learning, like, about the tease and the seduction and like how that's part of the whole dance too.
Mm-hmm.
Like not necessarily playing games and playing hard to get, but more of just like a fun playfulness, like
Mm-hmm.
that ups the I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, polarity, like
Yes.
get some electricity going there, get some sexual tension going there cuz
Mm-hmm.
that's fun.
Yeah.
But like the most fun I've ever had is when we're connecting and talking so much that we are also talking during sex. That we
Yes.
feel so comfortable beforehand saying everything that's on our heart and mind that
Mm-hmm.
when sex comes to, there's no walls there. There's
Mm-hmm.
there's no walls that would make me feel embarrassed or like mad at him or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's those walls that make sex not fun.
Exactly. Yep.
Or any
Definitely.
obligation energy, just ew, no. Like sex
Mm-mm.
is not
Nope.
about obligation. Like it's about consent and play. And yeah, the whole marriage thing, it really feels very obligatory to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't think I want to do that again.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's bad or wrong. I'm just saying, like, just because you're married doesn't mean you owe them anything. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, no obligation. That's you.
definitely. Absolutely. Yeah, don't that just adds pressure to the situation, and then it still has kind of an ick factor to it. Like nobody wants to feel pressured to do something, or yeah, obligated to show up in a way that that's not authentic for them in that specific moment or something. So yeah,
Yeah, like consent is sexy.
it is. It really is.
And like winning their heart. Like I love the movie 50 First Dates. Like I know it's a silly movie, but just the whole idea, like she loses her memory every night and he has to win her heart every day again. And it's just like that's the relationship I want, where you have to win my heart every day. Like
Hmm.
I'm not being a mean person at the beginning of the day, but still, like if you're not making attempts at being present with me, then
Hmm.
don't expect to have the fun.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
gotta, I don't know, there's this masculine feminine, I don't know if that's the word I want to use, this dance, where the chase and the, yeah, I don't know where
Hmm.
I was going with that, but it's just the magic.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
foreplay isn't ABCD, right?
Hmm.
Foreplay is all about that dance.
Hmm. And it can start. I'm keep I, I keep having this like mental image of text messages. Like it foreplay can start before you're even taking your clothes off. Of just like sending a sexy text or sending a sexy picture or something before you meet up with them, or tell them what you're thinking. And yeah, just warming everything up to make it easier and more playful and more spaciousness for conversations to happen.
Yeah, because like that means that they're in tune with you, like you're
Hmm.
on the same radio frequency. If you send a
Yeah.
text like, I wonder what it would be like if we did this and this, or,
Hmm.
like it's not like I must have this today. It's
Yeah.
a very like, I wonder is a very playful thing. And
Hmm.
yeah.
I love that. Yes. Is there anything else you want to add?
I don't know. I just feel like the best is yet to come.
Hmm.
Even though I've had amazing times, I I look forward to the rest of my sexual journey. And
Hmm.
I feel like the more I love myself and I feel like I can fill myself with love, the more I can be love with another person.
Hmm.
And like it's I'm learning how to not like put all of my expectations and all of that in a relationship, like to switch more to the appreciation energy than the expectations energy. I feel like that's such a big piece, and like I know that when you're connected with somebody and you have like this great date, you feel like, okay, I was super happy and I want to be super happy again. And then like let's say he doesn't meet with your expectations and then you're disappointed. And it's just
Hmm.
like we can't, like I know our minds are a meaning making machine, but we can't expect somebody else to be the source of our happiness because
Hmm.
we're the source of our happiness. And once we can just get back centered, grounded, and realize, and have some solo play, then we can go, and connect again. I feel like where dysfunction happens in relationships is when, like our, like let's say that we're circles, our circles like overlap and we're trying to be like, you are me, like instead of
Hmm.
like, you know you're each very separate people, and yes, you can come together, your circles can come and touch each other, but
Hmm.
at the end of the day, like they're not you, and you can't expect them to be the source of your happiness, because
Hmm.
like how does it feel when someone expects you to be the source of their happiness? Like that's a lot of pressure, you
Hmm.
know like all we can do is take care of ourselves and then come together and share that love.
Absolutely. Yes. I love that you said well, two things. The appreciation part, like really like learning to like have that be the focus instead of the expectations. And then for ourselves, yes, being the source of our own happiness and being love instead of like pulling to get something or expecting something or doing something to get something. It's like, no, if we just are that, we show up as that, other people have permission to relax into that as well. And then, yeah, there's more like the openness and the spaciousness and the magic happens. And then, yeah, the sex is mind blowing.
Yeah, and just to follow the pleasure, like in life
Mhm.
to follow the pleasure, but in sex to follow the pleasure too. Like that is where like the magic happens. Like
Yes.
orgasm doesn't just come like just like that. Like you have
Hmm.
to build up the pleasure, and you can't build up the pleasure if you're in your mind judging it.
Yeah.
You have to be in your body feeling the pleasure. Just like in life, like you're not just going to win the lottery and everything's going to be roses after that. Like you've got to follow the pleasure in life too to get to the abundance that you're seeking. You got to
Hmm.
see abundance, like there's magic in everything, like every wildflower you pick, like like
Hmm.
there's literally magic in everything. And how much do we overlook trying to get to some grand happiness?
Yeah.
Happiness is right here in the moment.
Hmm. Yes. Mm, I love it. Yay. Well, all right, y'all. Join us for next week's extravaganza when, yeah, we pick another topic out of our toolbox. Yeah. Bye, y'all.